All right, on this Honda Pilot, I realize it looks pretty daunting to try to get to everything on the front of this engine because this is not removable. This is all metal. It's all part of the main structure of the car, and it looks really daunting from the top, but it's not that bad once you get some stuff out of the way. So let's get going. All right, so like I said, I've done these Hondas before. What I do to get the power steering pump out of the way is I pull this hose. I don't even lose the fluid out of the reservoir. And I put a plug in the hose and I cap the reservoir, the bung on the reservoir, and those are my two caps. This is the plug that goes in the hose. This is the cap that goes on the reservoir. Then I just leave the reservoir sitting here. Then this hose is plugged. And then I take the belt off and I unbolt the power steering pump. I don't take this hose off. I leave that on. And then just lay the whole pump out of the way. You don't lose your fluid, and then everything's out of the way for you. To get these Honda belts off, I just use a breaker bar and a socket. It's got that square hex right there that the socket can go on. These are really hard to release. This is a liquid filled. It's like a shock with a spring. And so you're not pushing against the spring as much as you're pushing against the fluid. So they're really hard. There's a lot of tension on this thing when you pull on. It's not like a normal spring tensioner. So you just kind of keep constant pressure and you'll watch the shock will gradually compress. Then you'll get enough slack. I already have the belt off. I couldn't film and get the belt off with one hand. But anyway, I'm not a fan of these. They're kind of a pain, honestly, but it is what it is. So that's how you get the belt off. And then once I have the belt off, you can just, while you're down here, you might as well start taking stuff apart. So I already took the little shock thing off on the end here. It's 12 millimeter. I'm gonna pull this, and these are really tight. And then I can pull the bottom timing cover off while I'm down here. And so what I use is this guy. It's a 1/2-inch drive, and it's got a 12 amp battery. So it's got like the mega power to get this crank bolt out of there. Try to film this. Yeah, that is tight. But it got it out. Barely. So, yeah, you got to have a good impact for that. And if I can't get it out with that gun, I go back to the old trusty Air and I use that bad boy. That's a 3/4 inch drive Ingersoll Rand, and it gets them out. So I've already got the bottom part of the tensioner off, and the next thing I'm going to do is take this off right here. This bolt will remove this whole tensioner piece, and then your lower timing cover will be completely exposed. So that's the next step. All right, so off comes this. I got it loose. It's a 17 millimeter socket on that bolt. Just thread that out the rest of the way. And get that off. So there's your tensioner. It's a big old conglomerate thing. Anyway, with that, if I can get some light up in there for you, now you pretty much have the timing cover fully exposed. For this operation, I am going to use my angry little 10 millimeter 1/4 inch drive on this air ratchet and start going to town on these things. Anyway, I will pause the video and get the cover the rest of the way off, but you just take all the perimeter bolts and two bottom ones, and the timing cover will be off. All right, here's the timing cover off right here, and there's the bolts. And you guys know one of my pet peeves is that when people don't put all the bolts in. Some wanker worked on this thing last, and some of the timing cover bolts were missing. Drives me crazy. Do it right. Anyway, when someone says I have a broken timing belt, the belt doesn't usually actually break in half. Sometimes it will. But see these teeth on here? See all this stuff that looks like a rat's nest? Those are the teeth. The teeth are stripped off right here. Get my headlamp in there so you can see it. But so basically all the teeth are stripped off right here, and it made the crank pulley just freewheel in the belt. So yes, it's technically broken, but not like what you think. The belt doesn't actually usually break in half. It just strips all the teeth out of it. This is the timing belt tensioner right here. Two 10mm bolts. I'm gonna pause the video and take that off. I normally wouldn't take that off yet if I was just doing a timing belt replacement, but because this belt is shredded, I'm just gonna take it off now because I'm under here and it needs to come off. So now with the tensioner off, you can actually see how smoked this belt is. The teeth are literally gone. They're just stripped right out of it. So yeah, that will ruin your day. This engine has a bunch of bent valves because of this. Another little thing I do, belt, fan belt, I don't even know if I'm going to reuse this, but I always mark them. The arrow faces in towards the engine. That way things go back together exactly the way they came apart, because if you put it on this way, it's going to spin the belt the opposite direction that it's been spinning its whole life. Don't know that it particularly matters, but it just always is better to put it back exactly the way it was, in my opinion. So the next thing, now that we're up top again, is we are going to take off the power steering pump, which I previously capped and capped. And I'm going to try to get my finger in there and point. There's a bolt. Not the one you can see in the video. It's a little further back behind that one there. And right there, it's only 2 bolts. Then this whole pump will come off and lay up out of the way, and you don't even have to disconnect the hose or have a mess. So my rig for getting this bolt off, I have a 12mm swivel socket on there. You can just see, and a 3-inch extension, and I'm just gonna put my air ratchet on. That bolt's a little bit tricky to get to, but not terrible. All right, so it turns out that bolt is super tight. So I have a 12mm deep socket, and I have a little 3/8 drive breaker bar. So I'm gonna break that bolt loose first. When I tried the air ratchet, it just kept wanting to bounce off. So it turns out the 2 bolts, which are these guys right here, were super tight, holding this power steering pump on. And so I used this little breaker bar in a deep 12, and then I used this, a 12 swivel on a 3-inch extension, to just thread them out once I had them broken loose. And not all the Hondas have this thing, but you have to take this off to get enough room to get the pump out of there. But basically this whole mess now is just gonna come up out of here and just lay right up here on top of the engine out of the way. And again, hose is capped, so you don't have any mess or leakage, and you don't have to undo that hose. So I unbolted the AC line right here and right there, and it gave me enough movement that I was able to lift this bracket up. It used to be in the front, and I lifted it and put it in the back, and it gave me just enough room to squeeze that out of there. So there's what that looks like. The power steering pump out of your way. And now we got pretty good access to our top timing covers on both sides. And also we got to take the motor mount off, and then we can get the belt off. So the next thing that has to come off is the front motor mount. And those 2 bolts right there are 14mm. Then there's a bolt. You have to take this part of it off too. And there's a through bolt, and that's a 17mm. It's a bolt and a nut. And that has to come off as well. It's part of this. It's all one piece, but this is what unhooks it from the actual engine. Okay, so here's the bracket. This is the 17mm bolt. This thing is just a vibration dampener that's on there, in case anyone was wondering. And then there's a little 10 millimeter bolt here that's just a ground wire. And this one actually did not have a nut. The older ones used to. This one's new enough, it's just threads right into the bracket. And wanted to also point out another one of my pet peeves. You know what it is. Somebody's been in here before and see that right there. There's a bolt missing. Drives me crazy. Bunch of hacks. Anyway, the next thing that has to come off is this right here, that this was bolted to. And it's held on by 3 bolts. There's one of them right there, and the other 2 are underneath, and you can't see them, but they all go straight into the front of the engine. So let's get that thing off. Also, you could probably do it without doing this, but it's just way easier if you take this off. It's a bolt there, and then if you look down, I don't know if you can see that bolt straight down under my finger. There's a bolt head right there. That's the 3rd one, and then that piece comes off, and it just makes it way easier to get this out of there. Okay, so this is out now. This big motor mount that used to be right down in here. And I use this rig again, my little 3/8 breaker bar with a 14. And I broke this, and then there's one kind of buried in the hole, and then there's one down at the bottom. There's 3 bolts that hold this bracket to the front of the engine, and they have a ton of threads. So I found I have a 14 millimeter socket on my 1/4 inch drive, and I'm going to sneak this little guy in there, and I'm going to get those out. Saves a ton of time. You can't even see this one, but you can see the tool moving out away from the bracket because it's taking the bolt out. See the bolt right there? So there's 2 of the 3. And the other reason I took the mount out that was right here is because you can't get these bolts out. You could just leave them in the bracket, still get the bracket off, and I'm going to raise the car up. Maybe I don't even have to get to the bottom one. The bottom one's pretty easy to get to. Here's that bottom one on the motor mount. And it's out all the way. And now that thing should just pull off of there. I'm gonna go back down and pull it out from the top. All right, this thing's completely unbolted. There's just this one little wire loom strap right there that has to come off. Just a little 10 millimeter. And get that out of the way. And then this mess comes out of there. So there you go. Let's tip it up so you can see the 3 bolts that hold it on. The 1 bolt's still in the hole. That's the bottom one. And again, this was my rig to get the 3 loose initially, and then I used the little 1/4 inch air ratchet to get them out. And so as bad as this looked, now things are super exposed and easy to get to. This is where the little air ratchet comes in real handy. And I need 2 hands, so I'm going to turn this off, but you get the idea. You pretty much just zip all these timing cover bolts out now. All right, so here's both timing covers off, the upper 2. And then here's looking down. And I just went and tried to turn this water pump by hand. I did break it loose. But I think the water pump was seized, and that's probably what killed this timing belt. And it's a Honda water pump. It's got way too many miles. When you do a timing belt on really any engine with a timing belt, you should always replace the water pump at the same time. And honestly, this belt, so here's the timing belt off. Sorry for the fingers. And these teeth, a lot of times, like you can literally just take your thumbnail or whatever and peel the teeth off, but they're not bad. But obviously this whole section of belt right here is fried and the teeth are gone, and that is what killed it. And I think it was the water pump. The water pump is driven by the timing belt. It's right here. This is like an idler, and it's turning now because I moved it back and forth and got it to break loose, but I grabbed it hard and tried to turn and it would not move. So normally if I thought there was even a prayer, I would slip the new timing belt on and put everything back into time and see what, if anything, is damaged. But this one, I'm not even going to waste my time. It's 100% guarantee that it's got bent valves. And I'll show you how you can absolutely tell that once I get the valve covers off. But I still got to take off the intake, the valve covers, and quite a bit of other minutia before I can get to that point.